Hello class, this is going to be a hopefully a pretty short video on how to make a sorry about that, a line graph using Excel. So what we're going to do is we have the same data that we had in the other video whenever we were creating a chart using Google Sheets. We're going to try and create a graph using this as well, only in Excel, because I know there are several people who are using Excel and instead of Google Sheets. I must admit I'm not the most familiar with making graphs in Excel. It has a lot of options, a lot of different things you can do with it. And it's set up in a slightly different format than the Google Sheets. So I'm not 100% confident on how to do everything, but I kind of know how to do a little bit of the basics. And that's kind of what I'm going to go through today. So say we want to make a graph that includes total fixed cost, total variable cost, all the way over here to total revenue. What we're going to do is we're going to highlight those columns that we want to have the data in. We're going to say insert, come over here to where it says insert line chart, click on that and just do that first one. So now that we kind of have this line chart set up, if you look down here you have all of these different numbers that go from 1 to 10. Well, down here it's supposed to be output, and here we have prices. Well, we already have prices right here. Excel is pretty good at trying to predict what needs to go where, but since we didn't really have any data points down here to show the exact amount of output, then it's going to automatically fill it in. In this case, it filled it in from 1 to 10. Reason it did that is because we have 10 different data points right here. So we really want this down here to say output rather than just 1 through 10. So what we can do is we can right click, and whenever you right click right here, you can bring up this where it says select data. So you go through and you say select data, and now we have this sheet pulled up right here where it says legend entries. These are going to be all of your lines. That's your total fixed cost, total variable cost, total revenue. And then over here you have horizontal axis labels. Well, that's what we're kind of concerned with. That's what we're really concerned with right now. So we're going to go ahead in here and edit. We're going to actually select this output range right here. And then we select OK. And we say OK again. And then if you look, it goes 1 all the way up to 13.6 and then starts falling off again. And on top of that, this is not set up in equal increments. So not only does it go up and down, it also it's not equal. So what it's doing is it's reading these numbers as text. Sometimes you run into that issue. It's not really reading it as a number, so that way it sets up the scale properly. It's reading it as a text. So what you have to do is you have to edit this. So now we got all those numbers in there. We're going to double click on it. And then if you look over here to the side, this automatically pops up. At least on mine it pops up whenever I double click it. You should be able to right click and then say format axis, and it's going to pull up that exact same sheet or the exact same one we're dealing with right now. So the only way that I know how to make this become proportional is click date axis. And what it does is it changes these numbers in from text into actual data points, into actual numeric values. So you can kind of look at it saying, all right, well, it's reading 1 from 1900 to 1-13, and it's just that way it plugs in numbers. Well, if you see right here, these data points, because of the way it's set up, it starts making these high squiggly marks. If you remember back to the Google Sheets film, this line would actually kind of come up and hit that point, go up to that point, and then curve and start curving back. What we have going on here is we have, say at 12 units, the total variable cost goes to 45, but then at 12.6 it goes up to 67.5. So what's happening is it's reading this, or it's reading these numbers in numerical values now, and it's placing these where it thinks it ought to go. And then instead of it going up and then circling back like we would expect, it's actually going to start making these jagged marks. So what can we do about that? Well, we're going to take off these last two rows from the data sheet. Why? Because at this point you're not going to be producing there anyways. It's in that negative marginal returns, if you remember all the way back to chapter 4. And at that point we're not going to be producing, so it really doesn't necessarily need to be in our graph. And at the same token, it's making our graph look all kinds of funky. We really don't want that. So you come up here and you see this little funnel. It's called a chart filters. You click on that, and now it's talking about categories. And what we don't want is we don't want anything of these last two where it's in the negative marginal return. So we're just going to click here, click there, and we're going to say apply. To where now we have a graph that looks a lot nicer, a lot cleaner. So then we have the average fixed cost, or the total fixed cost, the total variable cost, the total cost, and then the total revenue. And this graph looks a lot better. So we want to go ahead and title this graph. We're going to call this total costs and revenue. Now we want to also add some, well, first off, what I want to do is I want to come up here and I want to put the labels over here on the right hand side. Why? That's just kind of how I like to see it. So let's see if I can get it. We're going to go to design, and you have this thing called quick layout. Well, I'm just going to click on this first one, and this is personal preference, and I just kind of want the labels over here, and it just kind of structures the labeling of, or how this graph really looks. So then we got this axis title over here. We want to rename this one to be price, or because that's going to be our price axis. And then we also need a horizontal axis, or a horizontal label. So what you come over here you do is you click on this plus sign, and that brings up these chart elements. You see where it says axis titles and this little arrow. You can click on that, and now you want a primary horizontal label. So you'll just check mark there. Whenever you do that, you can come down here and you can change this name, and we're going to call this output. So that's essentially how you can make a graph using Excel and kind of make it look nicer, a little bit nicer. Now, let's say that we want to insert another graph looking at these numbers. So we're going to go ahead and say insert, and I'm going to go through this one a little bit faster, just kind of reinforce everything. So we go ahead and insert this graph, and now this is going to be we're going to call this our average and marginal costs and revenues. Sorry, I had one of my dogs squeak a little chicken in the background. I got a little distracted. Anyways, so we're going to come in here and we're going to first and foremost, we want to edit this data down here to where we have the output on the bottom, just like we had over here. So we're going to come in here, right click, select data. We're going to edit this just like we did on the last time, and we'll select these points. Say OK. Just like last time, these data points, they are reading it as labels. So we want to say date axis. And of course, we got some funky graphs down here. So we want to come in here and we want to right click, and we want to say we want to come over here to the filter, and we want to take off these last two because they're not really necessary, and we say apply. So now if we look at it, and I'm going to change the layout of it just like we did last time. We have this average fixed cost curve, which is continuously decreasing, which is exactly what we want. We have the average variable cost curve, and that's going to decrease, and you see it spur up just at the end, which is correct. And we got the average total cost curve doing the same thing. And then you have the marginal cost curve doing one of those things, which is exactly what we want to see. So we have this graph that looks exactly like how we want as far as the lines go. So then the last couple things we need to do is we need to adjust this to say price. And we need to add that last label, that horizontal, primary horizontal label. We're going to call this output. So that's going to be hopefully a pretty quick and easy tutorial on how to create graphs using Excel. There might be easier ways to get this label down here to show up like how we're wanting it, where it's showing the total numbers of output, and then also set up in this numerical instead of using it as text, it's using it as actual numbers. There might be an easier way to do that. I have not been able to find that yet. So if you do know of an easier way, feel free to use it. This is just the way that I know how to do it. I hope this video helps anybody that's using an Excel format, and best of luck on the rest of the project.